All right, we've been talking about this cycle for a while of loving your neighbors. It's the second greatest commandment, to love your neighbors as yourselves, to treat people the way that we expect to be treated, to get into the lives of our neighbors and love them, do kind things for them, to care for them, to nurture them, and to move them to love God, to teach them who God is. Because if we don't do it, guess who does? Probably nobody. It's up to us as Christians to teach people who God is and to give them the gospel of Jesus Christ and to do that unapologetically and to have them fall in love with God. It's the greatest commandment in all of the scriptures. And then, of course, moving people to serving others. James says that faith without works is dead, that you cannot have faith without works. You have to be able to serve other people. Our theme this year is becoming the hands and the feet of Jesus, and our theme verses come from Matthew 25, 37 through 40. Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you a drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it to me. And I feel like a lot of times, you know, it's easy to point fingers at people, but let's be honest, a lot of the times we are the people saying, yeah, I don't really see any problems in my community or my neighborhood. You know, my neighborhood's quiet, it's peaceful, there's nothing going on here. And I think a lot of times we're guilty of being the person who Jesus is talking about. And he says eventually they're going to be separated, the sheep from the goats, and the sheep will be at the right hand of the Lord, and the goats will be on his left. And the ones on the left, he'll say, depart from me, I never knew you. And I think this ought to at least bring a sense of urgency to us. That life is short, that life goes by in a flash. Just a couple days ago, Eden and I were at one of Cameron's ball games, and people were talking about Mr. Harris, the history teacher and tennis coach here at Somerset, who passed away suddenly, had a heart attack at a young age. Our family certainly knows what that's like. My brother was 42 whenever he died of a heart attack. And you just never know. I mean, life is so stinking short. And we've got to listen to what God is saying. When God is yelling at us and putting signs up in front of us and telling us now is the time to help other people. Now is the time to serve. You've got to do it now. We better listen. Today's sermon is about gratitude and giving thanks. I mean, that's what gratitude is, right? It's giving thanks to somebody, and there's a lot deeper meaning with that. But I've really struggled this past week, and it's so ironic that this was my sermon for this week because, well, first of all, how about God just cranking up that temperature? And I'm not sure that God is behind it. It may be the other way around, but either way, the temperature's been hot. And you all know when I'm hot and it's humid, I'm not in the best of humor. Like, if you ever want to poke the bear, it's like the one button on. Like, nothing makes me mad. I'm so easygoing, but when I get hot, I get really grumpy. And Natalie just said, I think yesterday, like, you know, I want to do better in not complaining so much. And I was like, honey, I will support you in that. And maybe she was waiting for me to say, too, that, like, I'll complain less. But I'm going to wait until fall to make that happen. But this week, right, it was hot. It was sticky. Poor Cameron had to play a game. It was 95 degrees when we got to Altoona. I don't know why the temperature kept climbing, but we got to Altoona. It was hot there on Thursday. Altoona was like, 7 degrees hotter than what it was in Somerset by the time we got there. So he played a game, and actually played, how many on Thursday? Two games on Thursday, and got in the car and just laid across the back seat and was like, I really don't feel good at all. And, I just felt, the coach kept texting and was like, Cameron's out of water again, and I had to keep bringing him water. It was really hot. So in the middle of all that, it was just one of those weeks where I was getting a lot of phone calls and emails, and those things, they weigh on you, right? When you see people struggling and suffering, you feel that. My mom called me and she's like, hey, I have Sperry out here right now and they're looking at my well because I can't get water. Like I get water for a minute or two, and then it just goes to a trickle. And so she wanted me to help locate her pump, and I told her where it was, and they dug up the yard. And they pulled the pump out, and they're like, okay, the pump's not the problem, your well is dry. So she's not here today, she's escaping town. That was before the well fiasco, this was already planned. But she's got to drill a well now. And I read the quotes and my eyes about fell out of the sockets. And I'm like, it's not cheap to drill a well. They can't re-drill her well, they have to drill a new one. And they're going to have to go deep because the water table just keeps going down. And they called it, I talked to the gentleman on the phone, and he called it the cone of death. He was like, look it up. He's like, it's when you have a whole bunch of people drilling in the same area and the water table just keeps going down. So he said, if you want to point fingers, Indian Lake's the culprit. He's like, we've been in Shanksville pretty much all summer, drilling around Shanksville and Indian Lake, and we just keep going deeper because they're taking all the water. I have an email that apparently I missed the first email, and somebody who's homeless living here in Somerset said, hey, I'm emailing you a second time just to nudge you and try to get some kind of response. And I was like, I didn't see the first one. But it's stuff like that. All this week there's been every day probably 2 or 3 major things like that. Just major. And we feel the weight of that, and it's hard to give gratitude when you feel that weight constantly. But Jesus doesn't give us certain times that we should give gratitude. He's not like, wait until things are going really well and then give gratitude to God. Wait until the storm is past and then give gratitude to God. That's not what Jesus says. You see, he gave gratitude in the darkest times, in the times where people were most desperate for God to intervene in their lives. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So the word blessing, this is interesting because the feeding of the 5,000, how many of us know that story? Right? The feeding of the 5,000. Okay, we all know that story. I've preached on it many times here. We've had it in Bible classes. The feeding of the 5,000, it's when Jesus and his disciples go across the Sea of Galilee. They go to the other side because they're trying to get away from the crowds. They're exhausted. They're hungry. They're tired. And they're going to a desolate place. Well, people saw the boat leave at around the region of Capernaum, and they took off on foot, and they were waiting on the other side. The Gospels say that there were 5,000 people besides for women and children. So estimates vary, somewhere in the ballpark of maybe 15,000 to 20,000 people were waiting on the shore to an exhausted Jesus and his disciples. And we all know the story. They got off the boat. Jesus blessed them, and he said, he looked at them like sheep without a shepherd, and he had compassion on the crowds. And he got out and he began to teach them. And for hours he taught them. And then all of a sudden Jesus says to his disciples, why don't you go ahead and get some food for the people? And they're like, wait, what? We don't have enough money. It's getting late in the day. Where would we even go? And even if we had the food, we couldn't prepare it all for all these people. I mean, imagine seeing a sea of 20,000 people, hungry people, women, children, and men alike. You're looking at the sea of people, and Jesus looks at you and says, okay, I want you to feed these people. And you're like, okay, no problem. Their stress level just went from here to poking up through the top of the earth. Their stress level is off the charts. Well, this is one of the few stories that's recorded in all 4 of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. John does something a little bit different with this story, and it's subtle, but I think it's worth talking about. So Matthew, Mark, and Luke all say the same thing. Jesus took the loaves and he took the fish and he looked up to heaven and he gave a blessing. That's what Matthew, Mark, and Luke all say that. He looked up to heaven and he gave a blessing. The word used is eulogeo, and it's two words sandwiched together. So the first part of that is eu, which means good, and we've all heard the word logos, right? It means the word. So literally it means good word, or it means to speak well of, to bless or to praise, to bless, to thank or to invoke a benediction upon, to prosper. So this is the word that Jesus used in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. He blessed God. He blessed God and blessed the food. He pronounced a good word over the food and God for saying, God, you have blessed us beyond measure. That's why we say, whenever we pray before a meal, what do we say? Will somebody give the blessing? This is the word used in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Now, John does something different. In John's gospel, Jesus, number one, doesn't look up to the heavens. And I don't know if that has any significance, and I don't want to make something out of nothing. I don't know. I don't know why John doesn't record Jesus looking up. But he uses a different word. In John, it says, he gave thanks. Eucharisteo. It's where we get the word Eucharist. How many of you have heard communion referred to as the Eucharist? All right. So this is the word that's used every single time that Jesus took the bread and broke it and gave thanks at the Last Supper. Eucharisteo, he gave thanks. So, okay, one is a good word, it's the blessing, and one is literally good grace. You, it's the same word for good, you. And charis, if you know of anybody named charis, that word means grace in Greek. So literally, it means to be grateful, to express gratitude towards, or to say grace. And properly, it's saying God's grace works well. I love this form, and it's the word that we get gratitude from. It's also translated thanks or gratitude all throughout the New Testament. And Jesus, for whatever reason, John records as instead of saying this blessing, he's giving gratitude for God's grace. And it's a little bit of a subtle shift, right? The words are cousins. They essentially mean the same thing. But what Jesus is saying is basically, God, your grace is sufficient. Paul uses that expression, right? I had this thorn in my flesh. I begged God 3 times to take this thorn in my flesh away, this tormentor from Satan, he calls it. And God came back, and 3 times he said, no, my grace is sufficient for you. Eucharisteo. God said, my grace is good enough. It's good enough for you, Paul. Even in our suffering and even in our struggling, I think maybe this is the significance in John's gospel, as John's really highlighting the fact that even in our worst state, when we're the most hungry, we're the most desperate, when times are tough, God still provides for us. And God says, my grace is good enough for you. And that's what Jesus said. He looked, well, in John he didn't look up, but in John he takes the bread, he takes the fish, just like he did in the other Gospels, but he gives thanks, he gives gratitude, and he says, God, your grace is good enough for these people. Here's the passage that Cameron read for us again. We'll reread it. And then there's another place in John where Jesus uses the same word for gratitude, or your grace is good enough. And we're going to look at that scripture too. Jesus then took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, Eucharisteo, when he had said, your grace is good enough, your grace is sufficient, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. And when they had eaten their fill, he told his disciples, gather up the leftover fragments, that nothing may be lost. By the way, I think this is kind of a parallel to, what parable does this sound similar to? Anybody know? Gather up all of it so that none might be lost. Parable of the lost sheep, right? The shepherd goes after the one and says, we don't want any of the sheep to be lost. We rejoice more over the one that was lost and is found and brought back than over the 99. I think this is kind of a parallel to saying what God gives you, what God distributes, whether it's physical food or spiritual food or whatever it is, what God gives you, His grace is good enough. His grace is sufficient. It's all precious. We don't waste it. Brent's been doing a class about this, right? We don't waste. We don't waste our money and just throw it out on frivolous things. We put our money to work so that we can bless other people. So they gathered them up and they filled 12 baskets. Any significance with that number? Go like this. Yeah, it represents what? The 12 tribes of Israel. They filled the 12 baskets with fragments. Any significance in that? Over and over throughout the Bible, there's always a remnant of Israel. It's always the small remnant that goes out and they reproduce and they bless the whole world. They filled the 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they said, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." And then, of course, the people were hungry for the word. And we find out in the Gospel of John, he records something else that none of the other Gospel writers write, and that is that they followed Jesus back to the other side, again, where they originally came from, and they're like, "Come on, Jesus, give us that food." This is recorded in John chapter 6. "Give us that food. Come on, we want the food. Give us the food." And Jesus says, "I'm going to give you the spiritual bread. I am the bread of life. And I'll give to you, and you'll eat, and you'll be full." And the people are like, "No, wait, what? We want the food." And they got really mad. And Jesus kind of ridicules them for that. And then it says, and this is really heartbreaking, but it says, most of the people left and never followed Jesus again. See, they wanted the physical food, even though Jesus, when he blessed the physical food, he was saying, essentially, "God, your grace is sufficient for all these people." And there's so many deep lessons in this, and it's so powerful. But the importance of gratitude is so important for us as Christians. So in John, the other place where Jesus uses this word, Eucharisteo, he uses this word for gratitude whenever Lazarus died. All right, and Jesus is about to raise him from the dead. He knew he was going to raise him from the dead, but he still wept. I still joke that John 11:35 is DP's favorite verse because he can memorize it. What's it say, DP? Jesus wept. It's the shortest verse in all the Bible. But in John, Jesus raises Lazarus, and I want you to listen to how the story unfolds. "Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb." He had already wept, by the way, a couple verses ago. In John 11:35, Jesus wept. He was moved and he wept. And then deeply moved again, he came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it, and Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days." Imagine Jesus ordering the stone away. You know your brother's in there. You know that your brother died. And you're like, "Lord, please don't. Nobody wants to smell a rotting corpse of your brother." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. I don't know what was going on in Martha's mind at this point. I don't know if she was just like, "All right, God, I trust you." Or I don't know if she had doubt in her mind. I don't know. I don't know what was going on in her mind. I'd be panicked. I would be in an absolute sheer panic seeing them physically roll the stone away from the tomb that my brother was in. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, Eucharisteo, your grace is sufficient. Your grace is good enough. I give gratitude to you. I thank you that you have heard me. And here's the really cool part. He didn't just say it. He said it with purpose. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this. I said your grace is good enough. I said, God, I give you gratitude. Your grace is sufficient. I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me. Our gratitude matters. It's not about just saying thanks to God because the Bible tells us to. Right? Sometimes we boil the scriptures down, we minimize the scriptures, we dilute the scriptures, and we're like, well, I do these things because the Bible commands it and it tells me to do it, so I just do it. Like, no, look at the purpose for why God commands the things that God commands. He commands us to have purpose and direction and reason for giving gratitude to Him. It's to bless other people, that other people might believe. Jesus said, I give you gratitude, God. I lift up my eyes and I thank you. I give you gratitude. Your grace is already sufficient, and I know that you've heard me. You already hear me. You always hear me. And then He says with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. Love everything about this story. And so I want to tie this all together because this week I was struggling with gratitude. And I know, I am a spoiled little brat. My family, we have everything. We have good health. We have such a loving home. We have incredible children. We're just blessed in every single area. And I turn the tap water on at my house and I feel guilty. And I'm like, my mom right now is she's at home and can't use the bathroom. She can't take showers. She can't turn the faucet on and get a drink of water. I mean, we are so stinking blessed. And that's here in America. And Mom even put a post about that, and she's like, I'm actually okay. She's like, if I need to get water, I can go to Walmart and I can buy water. I can get in my car in my air conditioning and drive to Walmart and buy water. All the water that I need. And I'm thinking about all this stuff, and this stuff is washing over me this past week. And I'm like, man, I just need to be better about giving gratitude, about saying to God out loud so other people can hear it, God, your grace is sufficient for me. I thank you. I give gratitude to you. And so I'm thinking about all these things, and then I don't like Facebook Messenger especially. I get all these messages, tons of messages constantly. And I just quit reading them a long time ago. But there's it's the only form of communication really between Julian and Haiti and myself. So I'm every now and then, once a week I get on and I check my messages. So I get on and I check my Facebook messages this week when I'm at a really low point. I'm just struggling. And this is the message one of the messages that I find from Julian. DP is going to play it here.
Como é que this is a well. It's working very, very well. Oh, praise the Lord. Poppy.
Isn't that cool? Turn the volume knob down. There you go. There. Sending me an updated video on the well that we funded, a couple years ago? That this congregation funded. It was broken, if you remember. And I mentioned that to the congregation, and like literally within 2 days, you guys raised enough money. We sent the money to Julian. Julian found some local Haitian engineers, and they pulled the old well out, and they completely replaced this well with everything except for the casing. It's a new pump. Everything is new. And so, he just sends me an update. The well is working very, very well. Praise the Lord. And so you saw the bricks in the background, and that, he's been giving me updates about this. So a couple months ago, he sent me a message, and he was like, "Brother, things in Haiti are really bad with the gangs and everything. Their church keeps getting robbed." And that's a church that we did in 2012. We did the medical mission there with the team from here, and Marianne and Dave were nurses on that team. My brother Tim was a doctor on that team. We did a medical mission at the church right where this video is taken, and people keep coming in and they keep stealing things. And one of the first things that people steal is parts from wells, because they can scrap the metal or sell them to other people to put wells in. And he was just frantic, and he was like, we need to build a wall around here for security. So I was like, well, give me a figure. He gave me a pretty big figure, and I was like, I talked to Brent, and I was like, we can't really do much about that right now. We didn't give any money. I don't know where this money came from. I guess don't ask, don't tell. But it came from God. Somewhere they found funding, and they're putting a wall around the church, and he wanted to send me updated videos and show me this security wall. And he's so stinking happy right now. Even in the worst times, when we give gratitude, that message goes out, and it reminds people, so that you might believe, right? Isn't that what Jesus said? He said, "I thank you that you've heard me. I say this so that other people might hear and that they believe." And this week, to be honest, I was in that position where I needed to hear somebody else's gratitude to remind me that God's grace is sufficient. Be that person who gives gratitude. In all circumstances, give thanks and give gratitude to God. It changes people. I promise you it changes people. And it changes their perspective of who God is. And I want you to take that message out this week and give gratitude to God everywhere you go. And I promise to be better at it, and just to give thanks to God in all circumstances. If there's anybody this morning who's not yet taken the step to put Christ on in baptism and you're ready, or if you have prayer needs, we'd encourage you to come up as we all stand and sing this song together. Eric?